So this is the start of my smoker build, vertical smoker. Last year, if you follow me, I built a smoker oven expansion tank, and while that worked really well, I found it took up a little bit too much of a footprint on my deck. So I figured a vertical smoker would be really nice, and what's going to make this smoker really interesting is it's going to be insulated with some thermal mass, a bit like an egg, like a Kamado cooker. So I've welded it out of 1-inch square tubing all the way around for structure, so this thing is not going to rust out. I'm going to use 14 gauge sheet steel all the way around, maybe not for the exterior, but certainly for the interior. So right now what I've done is I have the frame welded up, I have a base, I have casters. So how this is going to work is this will be the fire chamber, then I'll have a water pan area, and then the rest will be cooking surface all the way up. So that'll be the idea. And what's going to make this nice is I'll be able to use it hopefully as a grill as well, because I'm going to make it thick enough, not like a traditional or like some of those cheap smokers that you buy at the hardware store or at your Home Depot. It's going to be nice and thick, so I can really crank the heat up on it if I want to do any actual grilling, I should say, not barbecuing, any actual grilling. So for thermal mass, I'm going to use clay probably kitty litter or sand. I haven't determined what yet. I might do a little more research on that. I could just insulate it with like rock wool or something, but that's great insulation, but it's not great thermal mass. So when you open the door, what'll end up happening is you'll lose a ton of heat, but it won't get back to the temperature as quick. But with thermal mass, it'll hold the heat longer. So that'll be the idea. So it's going to be 20 inches by 20 inches, including the door, and it measures 38 inches tall in height. So this is the start of it. I'll try to film whatever I can of the build, but I'll mostly take pictures and maybe narrate what I've done. It's a pretty straightforward build, so I'll just post what I feel what might be useful to you guys if you're going to build one. Like I said, this is my second build. I'm certainly not an expert at it, but I've done enough smoking on other smokers that I have a good idea on how one works. I have a Weber smoker as well. So, okay. So now I have some 14 gauge sheet metal that I'm going to install on the inside of the smoker. So I cut it out and I have it clamped, and I'm just going to weld it in, tack weld it all the way around on the two sides and the back. Okay, so now I have it all tacked in. I have the 14 gauge sides tacked in, and the reason why I tacked it in instead of running some long beads on it is that because it's thinner metal, it has a tendency to warp, and so this gives it ample time to cool. So it's all in there nice now. So now I'm fabricating the top, and what I've done is I've welded in some 3/4 inch angle iron on both sides, and then I have a piece of 14 gauge sheet that I cut out to fit in like that, and then I'm going to weld it all the way around, and I'm going to cut out a hole here for a chimney. And then this will be insulated as well, and I'll cap it, so I'll have an insert here so that a chimney can fit on it. Now I'm cutting out the top of the smoker so that I can fit the chimney in. So what I've done is I have a piece of 14 gauge that I've bent round, just around a piece of pipe. This is about 2 inches wide. It's higher than the top here, so then the chimney can fit over this. So what I'm going to do, so I've cut this out with a zip disc, the top here, I've measured it. So now I'm going to tack this in place, and then as I move it, I've done this before, I'm going to tack it, move it, tack it, and bend it, and just tack it until I get a nice round arc. And then I'm going to test fit the chimney, and then there's a little bit of adjustment with this that I could bend in and out so that the chimney slides right on top of that. And what I'm using for a chimney is a piece of, I think it might be like a dryer vent that I just got at the hardware store. Alright, so I have the flange fabricated on the top of the smoker, and I have the chimney fitted on. So now I'm welding on the sides. I have the rotisserie tubes in here, drilled out a hole on my panel. This is 16 gauge, and now I'm just welding it all in place. So I've got it all tacked in. Now I'm welding on the side panels, which is 16 gauge sheet steel, and basically what I've done is I have to weld it in strips, in segments, staggering it, so that way I don't have warpage. So I'm going to weld here, 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 and then I'm going to fill it in between, and that keeps the sheet metal from twisting and warping. We're doing a bunch of construction across the street, so hopefully you can hear me. So now I'm building the doors. So I'm going to have a door on the bottom. I sized this one to be 1 foot, and the other one will be about 2 feet. And so what I did was I cut out my pieces roughly, and then I laid them, I clamped them, and then I welded them in place to ensure that I didn't have any warpage. Got nice good square 90 degrees, and it's looking pretty good now. So now I did the bottom one, I'm going to do the top. It's really easy to do. All I did was I cut out 2 pieces here, laid 2 pieces across, marked out where I wanted the door to stop from the bottom, and then just made a square. Nice and simple, and of course using my handy right angle magnets as well. Alright, so I have a second door fabricated, and the reason why I fabricated them in place is just in case my box wasn't fully square. That way I got all the edges to line up. Here I have the bottom door fabricated. So it's a piece of 14 gauge on the bottom, square stock for the frame, 1 by 1, 1/8, and then some 1-inch angle iron, which I've welded in place here for the intake. And then I'm going to sheath this on the top of 16 gauge. This right here. To make the bottom door. I'm going to also put right here a hole and then a tube, steel tube for a handle, so a locking mechanism. Here now I'm working on the intake. I have 2 pieces of 1/2 inch bar stock welded here, and then I have some 1 inch that'll go like this. And then I'm going to cut some sheet steel, which will then slide 1 piece this way, 1 piece this way, so that I can open it both ways to act as an intake choke. So here I have it almost finished. I have some bar stock welded on here, and then this is some 14 gauge. This was 1/8, and it opens like that for the intake. What I'm going to do is probably tack on or put a bolt here with some type of handle that might be a little heat resistant, just so it's easier to open. So I'm going to use this stuff here for the gasket on the door. It's a high temperature Nomex. Typically they use this on Kamado cookers. So it's got an adhesive backing on it. You just peel it off and stick it on. It's felt-like, and I got it on Amazon. It wasn't that expensive. I bought 2 rolls of it, and you just stick it on. Put some all the way around the door temporarily with some tape. So now that I can put the doors on and weld the hinges on, so I can have the proper gap for the gasket. So I'm not going to put the gasket in place right now because I still have lots more work to do on the smoker, but this is just as a spacer.